Welcome to the September Talk Supervisor's Professional Learning Session. In order to access all information, you will need to log into Pear Deck by visiting joinpd.com and using the code DZKZJG. Simultaneously, you will also need to open the September 30th meeting recording in a separate window to follow along with the audio. You will listen to the video while interacting with the Pear Deck slides. Please complete the survey linked at the end of the presentation by October the 16th. Also note that it's not an expectation that teachers begin using Pear Deck in the classroom. While we encourage using this add-on to Google Slides because it increases engagement, we do understand that you need support when learning how to use this tool. So, we've shared a few links with you that you can use to get started. Frederick County Public Schools has purchased a Pear Deck license for teachers to utilize this tool for free. So please let us know if you have any questions, and as always, feel free to contact the instructional supervisor assigned to your school. We're glad you're all here, so let's get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before we get into our professional learning session itself, I wanted to share a little bit with you about our intentions for today. So not only do we want to touch base with the team as a whole to see how things are going and to discuss some things that we are currently focusing on, but then to also talk about what this year will look like. But we also wanted to model for you utilizing a technological tool called Pear Deck. Pear Deck is an interactive deck feature or slides feature that allows you to actively engage students on an individual basis or on a collaborative whole group basis. So many of you might be familiar with Google extensions that are offered. This is not an extension. This is an add-on that is specifically for Google Slides only. So if you are fairly proficient in Google Slides and have made those before, you're at a really good starting spot. Adding Pear Deck is a very simple process, and we will share a link following today's PD in the next few days that will provide you a little bit of foundational information on Pear Deck if it's something you can see yourself utilizing at some point. We certainly do not expect anybody to use it right now or even at all if that's not comfortable for you, but we wanted to model for you what engagement can look like when working asynchronously with students or synchronously with students. So with Pear Deck, our goal was to share a few different features throughout our time together. So you'll see opportunities for dragging and dropping, thumbs up, thumbs down, rating on a scale of 1 to 10, and this is just the start. Pear Deck also has many options for you to share slides based on content. I know many of our resource teachers, specifically in music, but in other areas, work very hard to connect their learning and their content with the things that are going on in the classroom. And so Pear Deck provides pre-made slides in reading, math, science, and social studies. They also have pre-made slides in social emotional learning. But on a kind of more general scale, they have pre-made slides for before, during, and after lessons. So they take a lot of the guesswork out. And then as folks get more proficient with it, everything that you'll see on our slides is completely editable. Sharon, Sue Ellen, and I just over the last week have really taught ourselves how to use Pear Deck, and we are certainly not proficient by any means. We will probably hit a few roadblocks today, and we ask just for your patience and grace as we kind of, step outside our comfort zones and trying something new, but to expand our own professional learning. So hopefully, not only will you learn some things about your content through the slide, but also ways that you can engage students, collect responses from them that could be used as assessment or just as an opportunity opportunity for you to give feedback. We will not be providing feedback specifically in this session just because we have to continue moving and we're a little short on time, but we will share with you some of the responses from your peers. As the facilitator of this, I am the teacher, and I can see all of the responses as they come through on my screen. And I can tell who the responses are from. So, in particular, if I am noticing that a student is having a difficult time or their response was incorrect, I can provide specific, immediate feedback, whether it's corrective in the case of a misunderstanding to that student, or I can provide that specific feedback to that student who got an answer correct and maybe ask them to, deepen their thinking, or I can deepen their understanding. So it does provide that immediate feedback option. Additionally, when all is said and done, as the facilitator of this Pear Deck presentation, Pear Deck will automatically populate a document in my Google Drive that will show me all of the responses from every student that was included in this presentation. So every student's response to every question, whether that is done synchronously or asynchronously. For this particular session, since we are working in a synchronous manner, I chose a teacher directed option. That means you can't go ahead in the slides, but you are kind of forced to focus on what is in front of you right now. If you are working with students and they are not with you, perhaps it's a Wednesday, or you're working with virtual students and you want to capitalize on your time with them face to face, but you want to have them continue on with that learning, you can direct for Pear Deck to be set up in a student-directed manner. That means the student can take themselves through the presentation at their own pace and answer those questions at their own pace. It's a really equitable and respectful way to provide wait time to students as they process the question, the information, the content, the skill, and then also provide a response. So you'll see throughout today's session that we're going to be modeling what that wait time can look like. It's not always easy for us, even though we're trying to be very mindful of it, to just be completely silent, because not everybody's comfortable with that silence. But we're going to model for you how that additional wait time can really give you the opportunity to think more deeply about your responses. Research shows that typically teachers give students less than 1 second of wait time. Oftentimes we get that question out of our mouths. Students who are able to process the question and retrieve that information from their brains more quickly shoot their hands up, and we often call on those students. This, of course, is not on a everyday, all day basis, but it's just pretty frequent. So this will kind of force the facilitator to give students more time, because you'll be able to see who has answered, who has participated, and how many you're still waiting on. So it's our hope you can take at least one thing away from this to help assist you in your instruction. On the next slide, what we would like to do is ask you to think about a success that you've had so far this year. This could be in relation to your own instruction, your classroom, your students, your team, whatever it might be. We know that there are roadblocks and we know that there are hiccups, and we'll certainly get to those. But what we would like to do is ask you to share any kind of success you've had thus far. So we'll give you a moment to type your answer in that space provided. All right, thank you for continuing to put in your responses. As the facilitator, I can see those coming in. And as I mentioned before, I can tell whose responses are whose. And so if I need to or want to follow up with a student in particular, I can certainly do that. I do want to share some of these with you because you cannot see the student responses. And I appreciate that about Pear Deck, that it is very respectful um, of some students who may not be comfortable, sharing responses aloud. It gives them the opportunity to have that voice that they might not always choose to have. So we have one person in particular who created individual instrument bags that include a shaker, tambourine, and rhythm sticks. These have been a big success in the classroom so that students are able to play instruments safely, and this person is able to prep the bags under the chairs before they enter the room. Very good. I'm finding success in providing mindful time for students at the beginning of the lesson. I'm so grateful to hear that. We know that that's an incredibly important part of what we do is modeling and giving students opportunities for that. Um, I'm not sure it's a success, but definitely a wonderful feeling to look out and see the students smiling, even behind the mask, and laughing during an activity. I would say that that's probably one of the most amazing successes and things that many of you have experienced since March. So absolutely, I would consider that a success. Many people finding ways to be collaborative, kind of pushing themselves beyond their comfort zones and learning new things. We know that everyone is working very hard and working to do the best that they can for our students, and we appreciate that very much. On our next slide, what we want to do is take an opportunity to check in with you. We want to know how you are doing. We want to know in this moment, or generally speaking, how you're feeling. So on this slide, what you'll see is a wellness check and a vertical purple line that you can slide from left to right. As I mentioned before, everything on this screen is editable. So if you're working with a pre-K or a kindergarten class, perhaps the text isn't appropriate to include, and you want to put in some, different faces showing a variety of emotions. Perhaps you do want the students to see this text because there are sight words included, and maybe you want to, give them that constant exposure. Pear Deck allows you to add audio to slides. So what you can do is you can add an audio button the students would press, and it would say, this is a slide where I'm going to find out a little bit about how you're feeling. And then they would click on another audio button and it would read each of those text boxes. So you have lots of different opportunities for how to make this slide interactive, but also appropriately meeting the needs and levels of your students. But for right now, we're interested in you, and we're going to give you a moment to let us know where along this continuum you feel you fall. Oh, and I see a question from Rebecca. Rebecca, there is no audio on this slide because I'm speaking with you. But if you were to create an audio on your slide, it would just be embedded into the Google Doc or Pear Deck itself. Because I'm new to this, I don't know if students are able to add audio. I don't believe that's an option at this time, but students could certainly respond with audio through Seesaw if that is a tool that you utilize. Great question. So actually, when you add that Pear Deck add-on, the audio button is very visible and very prominent. And I've told our teachers so far today, I think it's probably the easiest audio feature that I've worked with in technology tools. You press audio, it prompts you to record, and then it immediately saves right in your Google Slides / Pear Deck, because they kind of, become one when you add that Pear Deck add-on. Okay, so it looks like we have most, if not all, responses, and we appreciate you sharing with us how you're feeling today or just overall. As we spoke about in some of the responses, we had an individual comment how they're able to give students some time at the beginning of the class, to focus on mental health, mental wellness, social emotional learning. And that is absolutely vital, not only for our kids, but it is for you too. Because if we don't pay attention to that and address that, it does affect every aspect of who we are and what we do sometimes. And so what we'd like to do is Sue Ellen's going to share a list of some resources that, regardless of where you fall on that continuum right now, I think it's probably safe to say, or at least for me, that I can be, anywhere on that spectrum at any given moment, given, certain circumstances and situations and that sort of thing. So the resources that she'll share may not all fit your situation right now, but it's safe to say that they will at some time. So if you take a look at the next slide, Sue Ellen's going to walk you through some of these resources.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see your faces and happy to be with you today. So on this slide, you see a list of resources, and what you're going to do is drag your purple dot to the resource that might best support your needs at this time. Certainly, these resources are not all-encompassing. They are just some of the more popular ones, the ones that we have most readily available to us, but there are definitely others that we can hook you up with if needed. We wanted to point out the Employee Assistance Program and just remind everyone the importance and the benefits to this program. It's available to all Frederick County Public School employees, but also to our families. The phone number is listed on the screen, as well as the password that you can use. Lots of folks, the purple dot is going to colleagues. Our school counselors are amazing, and they have tons of resources. They are quite an asset to us. But certainly it looks like we lean on our colleagues a lot. And first and foremost, I know that Sharon and Linda and I feel that way too. Without your teammates and colleagues in the same field, it's hard to imagine what others are going through. And so being able to reach out and touch base with someone that's in a similar boat is comforting, to say the least. So thank you for sharing those thoughts. And as always, what exactly is EPA? EPA is the Employee Assistance Program that is a benefit through being an employee of Frederick County Public Schools. And that link is live in Pear Deck. If you wanted to click on it, it would take you to the site. And there's so much to it. It's kind of hard to wrap it up in a nutshell. But that's why we wanted to point you in that direction today, that if not today, maybe someone, you or your family member, is needing assistance or a benefit from it. You know what it's about and could perhaps use it down the road. So, and we have folks in HR that have a lot more wealth of knowledge in this area too, that we can point you to if you ever need it. And certainly it would be confidential. So thanks for asking that question. And we're going to move on at this time.
All right. Right now we're going to play a little game to see who has bookmarked the Elementary Instructional Services site. If you have, click on the thumbs up. If you haven't, it's okay. Click on the thumbs down. Our goal today is to make sure everyone has access to this. We get a few emails every week on people wanting access to this. One of the things that people are trying to do is to access it from a private email, and that won't work. And so you won't be given access to that, to the site. But please use your school email, and you can get access to it that way. So Linda, can we see what we have? Most of you said yes, great. So let's help that person or persons who need a little bit of support. So
right now you're going to see a screen that shows a bit.ly link if you click back on your Google Slides. That bit.ly link, if you could type that in. On your Google Meet, you should be seeing it. So once you go there, you know that little star that's up there where you type in your URL? You want to go to that star and click on that star, and that'll put it in your bookmarks. One of the things you may want to do is to pull it from your bookmarks and take it to your this bar at the top where you have your links, and that'll be an easy way to get to it. The other thing is if you have the old site bookmarked, you want to delete that, okay? So blue. You'll know that it's bookmarked if it does turn blue, and then you'll be able to see that. And you can name it elementary site or whatever you want to name it, and then it'll go down into that bookmark bar. Okay, it could go into a folder, it could go into your list of bookmarks, or you can pull it to the top. So let's go back to the Pear Deck slides, and let's see if we can get everyone, if you've managed to do that, get everyone to get a thumbs up. Good job. Everyone's there. Wonderful. All right. So again, this is a tool that you could use in music to see where your kids are, just as, again, to a formative assessment real quick. And you can always make sure that they understand what your intent is of the lesson. So I can click on their checklist. And where this came from is some of you were talking about, and I've reached out to a couple of you, to make some things more consistent with some of the lessons that we're delivering virtually, whether you're doing the all virtual lessons and submitting them, or whether you're doing virtual lessons on Wednesdays with students asynchronously. So in this checklist, let me open mine up as well. You'll see a few things that we want to make sure is consistent. So if you look at the topics, and we work with special education supervisors as well when we created this. When we're sending out these lessons, you know that you have to think about alignment, and your students should, all of your lessons should be built upon the SOLs that you need to implement. Then also you want to think about explicit instruction. What is the I do? What is the we do, and what do you want them to do afterwards? We're suggesting also that you put an I can statement in there at the very beginning of lessons. And then all lessons should have a way to measure the student's understanding once they've had instruction. If it's something that they're practicing, again, you're going to be doing a lesson for that as well. Most of the schools are using Pear Deck. If you need support with Pear Deck, Seesaw. And if you need help with Seesaw, and I know some of you have reached out to your ITCs to get support with that, and also you could use Pear Deck. But again, if you're showing students a new tool, make sure that you've taught them this tool before you ever use it. And because you want them to be familiar with it. And also, if you're talking with their parents who are distance learners with those students, then you want to make sure that the parents know as well. So maybe it's something you say, I want to use Seesaw this week. And so you want to share that out. So your students and the teacher, the parent at home would also need to know how to use it. The lengths of the lessons, by the requirements are they're 30 minutes in length. And that includes the elements and the lists above. Visual supports is one thing that we've gotten some questions on. And this also came from special ed, as well as we've wanted this as well on the list. We want to make sure that your visuals, your drawings, your anything that you're putting on the screen, that first of all, it's large enough. Maybe you want the students to be able to see that. Maybe it's a circle that you're putting around that. Maybe it's a highlighting tool that you're using. If you're using videos, Linda talked to you about putting voiceovers. Again, all of our students aren't on the same reading level, and we can't assume that they're going to know a lot of the text that you're putting on the screens. And you probably want to limit some of the text as well. Visual cueing, that was the next one. If you want to draw attention, again, highlight the words, bold them. When you're talking about it as well, record your voice and make sure that students are able to understand. There's like a little speaker that comes on the slide, and then they would be able to click that. But again, you want to make sure that you've taught this. How to do narration to Google Slides. If you wanted to do a Google slide, I know that all your presentations are in Google Slides, which is great. And by the way, you just take your Google slide and just do that add-on and put it right into Pear Deck, or you can continue to use your Google Slides. But there's a online voice recorder .com. If you go to that, it'll pull it right over into your Google Slides. And I put a video in there on that link. Sharing permissions, we put a link in there about that. I think we've got that under control now. And people aren't sharing it with everyone, and students don't have access to it where they can make edits. So I think we're there now, but if you need that resource, go ahead and do that. Universal design for learning. Again, this is just different ways that you want to make sure that you're including all students. You want to use the right font. It'll tell you the right font that you should be using. You want to use videos that don't have a lot of noise in them. You want to listen to those things and make sure that students can see them on the screen with the right contrast and the right buttons. So all those things, you want to increase space on your screen. This white space is kind of a good thing on some of the slides, not too many things that you want to put on that slide. And then legalities. Let's talk a little bit about copyright. Sue Ellen, can you share your screen now?
I'm still sharing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Go ahead.
ma'am.
So if you click on those 3 dots at the top, or 3 lines, and then I'm going to give you some information that you can go to find a lot of information on copyright. Go down to distance learning support and technology support. So in order to do this, you're going to go back to your tab and go back to the Elementary Instructional Services site. And I'll give you a minute to do that. And Sue Ellen's screen is like smaller right now, so she's going to go up to those 3 lines again. You're probably going to see writing on the side of yours, the whole menu. But when she clicks on that, it's going to take you to that menu. You want to go down to support, and then scroll down, and you're going to see a big C there. Copyright information. All of that information came from Glenn Moreland's office, and we want to make sure everyone's doing everything legal. And so if there's music that you're sharing, and I know you all know a lot about this because of some of the things that you've put out to students already in your monthly things that you're sharing with students. So again, this is just resources just to make sure that whatever you're using, you're making sure that it is legal. If you have permission to from an author for reading books, you want to make sure that you're stating that also in your presentation that you're sharing with students. Okay. And again, it's just to make sure that we're doing everything the way we need to be doing things and to keep everyone legal. And again, at the bottom of that document, the checklist, you're going to see the different fonts that you should be using. You can choose any of those, but those are the recommended fonts that everyone should be using in their presentation so everyone has access to your slides. Okay? If you have any questions about this, you can respond in the chat, but let's go ahead and go back to our Pear Deck. Let me get back to the Pear Deck.
Okay, before I address what's on the screen, what I would like to do is answer a question that came up in the chat. And Rebecca asked, can Pear Deck link to Seesaw or vice versa? So I'm not 100% confident in my response just because I am getting used to Pear Deck itself. But what I can tell you, Rebecca, is that as the facilitator of Pear Deck, so as the teacher, when I am in my Google Slides and I click the button that says share lesson, it will show me the joinpd.com link. as well as the code for the Pear Deck. So what you could essentially do is, especially if you're on your Chromebook, taking a screenshot is really quick and easy. You can take a screenshot of that image and then paste it into Seesaw or Google Classroom, or you could just simply, post it into your Seesaw so that students and families can access it. I don't know that they necessarily link to each other, but you can share the link. Students do not need to have the Pear Deck add-on to access it. They just simply need to have the link and the code. Okay, so as we move forward to our next slide, we want to discuss specific feedback and timely feedback that we can provide to learners, and how we can equitably and accurately assess and grade student progress and learning. So this has been a conversation that many of us have had with not only resource teachers, but classroom teachers. But we want to hear what has been working for you. What are some ways that you've been assessing your students or gathering feedback? We know that providing feedback to students is one of, if not the most powerful tool for moving student learning forward. It's not the A through F that's on their paper. It's not the 100 through 0% that's on their paper. It is that specific feedback that tells them, this is where you are, this is where you need to be, and this is how I'm going to help you get there. And these are the things that you need to do to get there. So we really, we recognize that grades have to happen and that there is value in them. But we also want to be mindful of not forgetting how vital that specific feedback is. So we're going to give you a few minutes of think time, wait time, and response time. And please put your responses in the box provided. And then when we've given you that adequate time, we'll kind of, I'll share some of those responses that we're seeing. And please feel free also, if there's a specific question you have about that, you can tag that along with your response.
All right, let's look at some of these answers. First of all, we want to, I think Sue Ellen's answered that question. Are the responses saved in Pear Deck? You'll actually get an automatic save to a document to your Google Drive once, if you're the facilitator and the teacher, and it'll have all the responses. Now, what we can do is send some of your responses as well, send your responses as well back to you, and that's what we've done with the other groups when we've talked about something else. So let me read some of the responses. I think feedback is where Seesaw shines really well, as it provides me and my students easy access to each other. I can easily see students' work and respond to them respond to them easily. It's challenging to be equitable with providing feedback to students when most of them give instruction to our hybrid kids biweekly, but our virtual kids weekly. I firmly believe they should be receiving the same amount of instruction, and I feel that we cannot provide fair and accurate assessment with our limited amount of time that we have with the students in the class. And again, I totally understand that. We totally understand that. And we're, again, in a different situation, and we're just doing our best right now. And hopefully we won't always be like this, and I'm sure we won't. In the classroom, I provide feedback through discussions and making music. Students are given the opportunity to try new things and receive feedback from me and their peers, and for virtual students. And then I have blocks of time in my schedule that I use to give feedback to virtual students and virtual assignments, the hybrid students. I'm able to address the students individually, electronically, and can still give them feedback and ask probing questions if needed. I have found that they love getting feedback because they feel grown up by checking their emails and using Google Suite. Absolutely. I'm still exploring different avenues for students to complete and submit work electronically, Seesaw, Pear Deck, so that all students have success in submitting assignments. You're absolutely right. Students love getting feedback from their teachers. And I have a 14-year-old who really does enjoy that because they feel like you care about them. So it's building those relationships. And there's even ways to do voice feedback as well. And some of you have said that you're trying that. Allow students to send assignments back through Seesaw, set up office hours for one or more conversations and questions, check assignments daily, monitor students' participation, and remind students that assignments are needed to give a grade, and give out lots of positives. So one of the things that we're going to do at the end is do a survey. If you want to connect with different people on what they're doing, because we're gonna be seeing your survey, and you'll be able to be connected with different people. And again, this is such a small group, but maybe it's your instructional coach, maybe it's your ITC if you need some support with certain things, and we can help you with that as well. So let's move back to the Pear Deck presentation. All right. Now, one of the things we want to talk about now is curriculum development. And we're not going to be starting this today because, again, we only have an hour with you. But you have access there to the 2020 music standards as well as the crosswalk. So we need to think about what will our meetings look like in the coming months, and then how can we better do this? So what we'd like to talk about is what that can look like. Next month, what we'd like to do is to see if this is all right with you. We need to make sure that some of the things that we need to make sure when we're creating curriculum is to create our pacing. That's usually where we start. So you have that crosswalk that tells you the 2020 standards and the previous standards that you're using now. And so our goal this year is to create a curriculum document for music and for art as well, because they're up as well. But we wanted to give you some time to think about the pacing that you have in place right now, and think about the crosswalk. What's the changes on that crosswalk, and how do they fit into the pacing? And then do you want to change them? What are things that didn't work out with pacing? So we want to give you time to work on that. Now, this may be time that on this Wednesday that you all get together, of course, with permission from your administrators. And then we would check in with you. We want to see what you think of this idea. We would check in with you that day at this time that we would be meeting to see how things are going. Because really, that conversation of pacing needs to come from each of you. It's not something that we really want to dictate. But again, based on the requirements from the VDOE, that is one of the things that we need to make sure is consistent, that we have a curriculum that meets the needs of the students. And we need to make sure that pacing is in there, amongst other things also that the VDOE is requiring us to do. So we need a sequential pacing, aligned resources, target for students to reach, like a success criteria, and even some assessment methods that we've talked about in the past. And also, this is part of creating curriculum. But we first have to start out just with the pacing. So if you want in your Google Meets, if you could go back there and just give a comment on, so everyone can see, on, is that okay for you all to meet outside of the time that we're meeting the next time, and you'll continue on that time, that hour, but we'll just pop in to see how your pacing is. And you may not get that far, but maybe if you did meet together, then you would be able to get more finished. And the idea is for us to have a curriculum document in place for next year. So again, this is not a fast moving curriculum that we need to throw together. I want us to really think about each of the components and really do a nice job as well. So if you could go to the messages. Okay, she says outside of time, I'm not understanding.
Also, earlier that day, we have scheduled next month besides time between now.
I'm gonna let Sue Ellen go. Come on. She's telling me something right now, and I'm not understanding her. So I'm going to ask her to turn her mic on, and then she can explain outside of time. I think that'll answer Marianne's question.
Okay, so what we thought was, because between now and December is the last meeting we've held with you, they're only for an hour. And this work obviously is going to take longer than an hour with regard to the curriculum development. And as Sharon mentioned, pacing is the first step. And so we thought if you wanted, you guys could get together virtually between now and the end of October date. I think it's the 28th or something like that we're scheduled to meet with you next time. And this is all optional. You could get together outside of that time. That's what that means, Marianne, outside of the time that we already have scheduled with you in October, November, and December. If you wanted to get together virtually and start working on the pacing, if you wanted to get together in a room where you can socially distance on one of the Wednesdays between now and the next time we meet, or even earlier that day in October, we meet with you next time. Then what we would do is when we meet with you in October, Sharon, Linda, and I, we would check in with you and say, okay, how's the pacing going? Well, we actually got through quarters 1 and 2, or we have questions about this, or we need clarification on that. Not that you certainly couldn't email us, when you guys are getting together. But it would be a time that we know all of us would definitely be coming back together, and we would just be regrouping and seeing how far you've gotten and what you need. If it's concerning that, wow, when would we get together? We probably all wouldn't be able to. We need to hear that kind of thing too. We're just tossing out this idea for you and seeing how you feel about it. And that's why we wanted your ideas and responses in the chat. I think we're also okay if somebody wanted to unmute themselves and say something. We are a small enough group that we could handle that too. Does that help, Sharon?
Yeah, Marianne is saying that helps.
Okay.
Thank you. But again, we'd like to hear from you, or we can just stick with that hour and do what we can do. But we wanted to get your voice and your opinion on what's the best way to do this.
Sharon, can you tell us a little more on what
If
the
you want to turn off,
overall?
it looks like Rebecca's turning hers off.
I wish the state would give us additional time, Catherine. Basically, we have this school year, and the pacing is the first step. The pacing not only has to be done probably sooner rather than later, and then once we know what standards we're going to teach in each quarter, the other parts kind of come along quicker. We'll build the documents in our office. Our secretary is super quick at putting documents together and using graphics and that sort of thing. It's the other components that we feel as a group are going to be quite beneficial to include in our curriculum documents, those resources, the success for criteria, the other things that Sharon mentioned earlier. I know it's a crazy year. You're absolutely right. And one of the things that we've been saying in our other groups with K-5 teachers is the state recognizes we're in a crazy year, yet they still are holding this responsibility to our feet. And so, you know what? We recognize it's stressful. We are stressed right there with you. And you know what? We'll just start wherever we can and where everybody's comfortable, and we'll just get as far as we can, you know? And if we don't happen to complete it all, we still have our current curriculum documents. And the thing is, the standards aren't changing all that much. So, you know, we'll just do our best. That's all we can ask of one another. We have some comments coming in that Rebecca feels that getting together in person or on a Wednesday would be the most efficient way to approach it, maybe just for half a day. Amen. Absolutely. Heather, yes, absolutely. We fully understand the stress. There's so much on your Wednesdays, you know, ideally. And the other thing is a lot of this could be virtual. Maybe you're not all trying to meet together, but we get a document started for you that we could build. It's sort of a template, and you could put ideas of what you think the standards are by certain grade levels. Maybe you guys as a group decide to divide it up by grade levels. Maybe 2 of you are working on kindergarten and another 2 of you are first grade and so on. And then everybody comes together and says, yeah, I like where that pacing is going. The thing about that is we need to look vertically and make sure that that's making sense. K5. Yeah.
Okay. And I see a lot of stress here on a couple of you that are saying that the time, we can totally, again, stick to the time that we have, the hour, and we'll get as far as we get. So if there's ones that want to get together and to start this as a document and get your thoughts out, you know, everyone works differently and everyone's at a different in a different spot right now. And we want to make sure that you know that we care about you and that we're here for you, and we certainly don't want to stress anyone out. So I don't know that we'll come to a conclusion, but what we will do is meet the next time, and we'll start it unless we hear from you all. Maybe some of you who feel like, you know, I can go ahead and get started, get my thoughts down, and I'll brainstorm some things. Go right ahead and do that and bring it to the next meeting. But basically, I haven't heard from everyone yet. So thank you for your feedback. I can't see it because I'm.
It's what the do they see themselves?
Oh, there you go. For the next minute, though, we're going to go back into your Pear Deck and then write down what you need to be thinking about for the next meeting and what your next steps are. So again, this also gives you a chance for those who didn't share to be able to share and to give us your feedback as well. So if you could take that for the next minute and do that, and we'll give you some time. All right. It looks like we have a lot of good thoughts here. And again, guys, don't feel like you have to crank out a pacing on your own. Several of you said you want to think about this. You want to think about the difference in the standards from what you're previously doing to the new standards, and that's all perfectly fine. Okay. And we know some of you have a lot of things going on, and we want to make sure that you don't take this as being something that's added on. We have time in the schedule to do that for that hour. So what we'd like you to do, let me go back. As you can see on the slide, could you see yourself using Pear Deck in the classroom? And again, maybe this is right now, it's no. Because maybe it's just a little too much, or maybe it's, you know what, maybe I'll try it and maybe I'll do it later, but right now it's just too much. So I'm kind of right in between. So, or you know what, I think I need to try this, or I'm going to look into it, or just going to watch the video to see what I can do. So if you want to go ahead and give me your responses on that. Okay. We have everyone from the whole spectrum, from right there all the way to not right now. Okay. And someone just sliding around. There you go. Well, it's okay. It's all good. So again, it's just another tool for us to use. I'm trying to slide. So the last thing we need to do today is we want to make sure that you do the survey, because we want to make sure that we're meeting your needs and doing everything you need, you get from us, and we're here to support you. But if you could finish that survey, go into that link and get the survey, and then have that done by October. Is our next meeting? 16th. By October 16th, do the survey. We would appreciate that. That way, if people want to collaborate, we can make sure that we're sending out some emails and also not stressing others out who are not ready for that right now. But again, we're here for you, and we hope that you know that. We thank you for your time and participating with us. We hope that you enjoyed Pear Deck. It really did help us understand where you're at, and we like you to share your feelings always, no matter what they are. And I hope that you know that we're always here for you, and we hope you have a good day. If there's any questions, feel free. We're going to stay on here for a minute or so and answer any other questions, but otherwise we'll see you next month. And if you have any questions in between time, just give us a call or an email. Thanks a lot.